Like me, you remember every single time that you were called out in public. Whether it was in second grade, seventh grade, or last week, I could distinctly describe to you the situations in which I was publicly embarrassed in such detail that it would astound and amaze you. You might be thinking, Stephen, is your memory just that great? No, I think it's that these negative experiences have a way of sticking in our brain long past a lot of the other memories that are more neutral or sometimes even more positive. So when we're looking at today's story in the lectionary, Jesus is giving advice on how to call out other people within your community, right? People that ostensibly should be your friends, or maybe just people that live near you. Maybe you don't like them that much, but he provides a way that we can talk to people and we can seek to address problems in their behavior without ever actually, hopefully, upsetting them that much, right? He says, first you should go talk to them alone, right? See if you can work this problem out. If it's a situation where somebody has wronged you, a lot of the times in those situations, in my experience, it's kind of a mutual thing, right? Maybe you did something that bothered them, they did something that bothered you back, and there's a lot of tension as to who is actually at fault here, who is responsible. And ultimately, I don't think Jesus' issue is concerned with meting out blame and saying, oh, you're responsible, you are innocent, like a court of law. I think he's interested in trying to make sure that we can maintain a holy and healthy community with one another, right? And so I think when Jesus is saying, go talk to this person on your own, that would be the ideal way to work out a situation, right? Is to hopefully everybody can come together and just work their problems out. But Jesus is a realist, right? He knows that this just won't magically solve all of our problems. So he says, if that doesn't work, go get a couple other people, right? And then all of you together can then go talk to this person. I really like this one because I think, if anything, a lot of the problems that you have might be solved by having to talk to a couple other people about this problem and getting them to come with you. Because if you do get people that are, say, of the community that know this other person just as well as they know you, a lot of time I think you'll find out that they might not necessarily side with you on things. They might hear you describe the problem, get a good read of the situation, and decide, actually, I think you have some work to do yourself, my friend. Yes, this other person has done something wrong, but we should seek to address both of these problems if we want to maintain this healthy relationship within our community. This is, I think, a very key way to dealing with this problem. And hopefully, if you have this group of people that are all coming together, assessing the situation clearly, openly, and honestly, that both sides, you and the other person, will see the ways in which your actions have harmed each other and try and work things out. And finally, if that doesn't work, Jesus says to then and only then involve the authorities, right? I know we all know that person who loves going and talking to the boss. The whole term, the whole idea of being a snitch, right? Comes from this idea of you shouldn't involve authority unless it is absolutely necessary, right? That if you can work problems out just between you and them, or if you can work problems out with a smaller group of people, there's no need to involve the authority, because unlike I said, perhaps Jesus, authority is interested in issuing blame and responsibility and saying, okay, you have done this, therefore you are being punished for this, or you have to do this to make restitution. And that doesn't always go the way we want it to, and it's much more damaging to relationships when those official decrees are issued out. This whole section seems to be a way that Jesus is kind of just telling us almost like a holy HR, right? He's saying, hey, here's how I want you to solve your problems with each other. Jesus is very concerned not with just these big ideas of what it means to be holy, what it means to worship God, but also how do we love one another? How do we live in community with one another? And he seems to be giving us instructions on how to be good friends, how to be an ally to those that you're living in community with, because it won't always be easy and it doesn't always come naturally. There's always problems, there's always tensions. Because we're imperfect, we're going to mess up and they're going to mess up. And Jesus doesn't want us to say, cut out those relationships and get rid of them, unless that is absolutely necessary after having gone through this whole process. He wants us to try and seek restitution, to restore relationships, to restore community, and bring about wholeness and oneness, if that is ever at all possible. And you can see how important this is by what Jesus follows this story up with, right? He talks about how the things that you bind in heaven, right, the things that you make tighter, will also be tighter in heaven. And the things that you loose in heaven, right, the things that you say, man, this is not as important, will also be loosened in heaven. Right? The things that we do while here on earth have eternal impact. They have a holy and lasting potentiality. And so it is important for us to honor these relationships with one another here on earth and not just say, well, whatever, I'll see them in heaven, but I don't want to see them here on earth necessarily, right? If it is at all possible to restore these relationships, that is what Jesus wants. And he says then that wherever two or more are gathered in his name, that the Lord will answer their prayers, right? This is why it is so important for us to maintain these communities with one another, is because there is power in that. When we are in community with one another, great things can be accomplished. So let's do some self-reflection. Think about the times in which you maybe called somebody out publicly before you should have. Think about the times in which you have felt that yourself, that you have felt called out in a way that was embarrassing to you in your social standing, and how you felt when that happened, and how much harder it might have been to restore those relationships in that community afterwards. How can we build this holy community that Jesus is talking about? And what can we accomplish when we're living in such a community?